Well, it's an exciting day in the Aldea newsroom. Today, for a version of an Aldea Talk interview, we have the wonderful Jesenia De Moya Correa, formerly of The Inquirer, but now freelance Latina journalist, killing it out here in Philadelphia and elsewhere. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate you both for taking the time.
So why don't you just tell us kind of about your upbringing? I know you were born in Washington Heights.
Yes.
And then, as you said prior to the cameras rolling, you grew up in La Vega.
Yes.
So tell me, how would you describe, your upbringing between New York and Dominican Republic?
Wow. I think it's the most fascinating thing about being an immigrant is that you are from everywhere and from nowhere. And one of the things of being born in Washington Heights in Manhattan and being raised as a Dominican in the northern region of Dominican Republic is that you learn how to shift from customs and cultures and languages in a very smooth, I would say, subtle, but also strong way, because you have both of the identities in a very solid, or I would say in a very strong sense. And then also being present in these places and feeling a stranger, feeling like you don't know anything about these places and you have to continuously be discovering them or rediscovering them.
And, when you were growing up, what was a moment or an instance that prompted you to, select what career path you wanted to take?
So when I was doing high school, this was in Colegio Don Luis Despradel. There was a professor there, a teacher. His name is Arturo Inoa. He said in one of my, class assignments that we needed to present something, and he was our Spanish teacher. He said, you have something for literature and writing, and you express yourself very well. You should consider journalism. And if not, just try communications then. And I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to be a teacher. Like, that's what I wanted to do at the moment. I wanted to educate. But this teacher was the one who said, think about it. In our countries, we have a test that you take when you finish high school. So cuarto de bachillerato, which is 12th grade, you take the test, el psicopedagógico, which is basically tests that assess what are your strengths and your skills and where you might be able to do your best in a career. And I remember it gives you five different options. The first option was journalism. The second option was communications. The third option was to be a doctor. I don't know how I really don't understand how anyway.
It's a big jump.
Yeah. And the fourth one, I can't remember. I do remember the last one was to be an engineer. And I'm like, I know math is not my thing. It's not going to happen. But to me, it was shocking that my teacher had seen this, right? And then when I take this test that is, supposed to actually, I guess, tell you how to align yourself with where your skills and your strengths are, it would actually say journalism. And I said, you know what? And I thought that was a message. I surrender. I'll do journalism. And that's how it happened.
Tell me about some of the early journalism experiences you had. I know you eventually went to NYU. When did that come immediately after?
My mom went to NYU.
CUNY, right.
I did go to CUNY, yes.
Right. Did that come immediately after you graduated in Dominican Republic, or did that come a little bit later?
No, not really. There's a whole thing a whole world of things that happens in between.
Here's a whole world of things.
I worked as a reporter for our online student paper while I was finishing my career. And 4 months later, I became the editor-in-chief for it. And this was a year-long experience that put me in a position where I led a 10-member staff, but also was the opportunity that gave me the chance to do a year-long internship with the oldest publishing newspaper in Dominican Republic. And this was my first very big job as a journalist. And I still had not graduated at that point. And from there, when I finished my internship, I did radio hosting and producing for Radio Santa Maria, where I led a newscast, 2-hour newscast. It was community radio. They were very people-driven and very servicey. So it was like, wow, this was the experience where you forget the whole capitalist, corporate, I guess, side of journalism, and you really devote yourself to people. So in that experience, I did a lot of rural work in el campo, speaking to people and listening to what their issues were and how to be able to fulfill their needs to produce segments for these 2-hour newscasts that were tough to produce, but amazing experience. And after I got married and adopted a Chihuahua dachshund, I decided to return to the US in 2015. And there is when I come back to New York City. I learn about all these things I've missed out during the time I've been working in Dominican Republic. And New York feels weird, and the US feels weird. And trying to understand the media industry is just complicated. And I said, you know what? I gotta learn my ways around, because this is not, I'm not understanding what's happening here. And that's how I end up at CUNY, being one of the 13 pioneers of the bilingual journalism program. In the US, I was pretty naive when I came. So going through CUNY was what gave me a little bit of a better lens about specifically how these views regarding conservative or progressive can actually influence in editorial lines, but also considering who are the owners or the people who invest behind it, right? To me, it's still a little bit shocking that in the US media, we would actually go through ideologies on political views, especially because I come from a different media landscape, right? And it explains a little bit of the polarization that we are living here right now, because everything, including the media, has been completely politicized. And I think that that is going to be so harmful as we look forward to things.
I wonder, as you got to the US, or even at any point, when did you notice, at least regarding US media, the lack of Hispanics and Latinos in that space?
The first time I realized the issue about Latinos and Hispanics in newsrooms is when I worked for the Philadelphia Inquirer. And obviously we're talking about a whole different ballgame, because in this case, we're talking about a legacy, mainstream, English-based media outlet, right? And we've known that for years, forever. Legacy media outlets have had a big issue when it comes to addressing diversity and including voices from all spectrums within journalism. And then, you know, racism, which is a big part of these conversations, it's tough to get your foot in the door. So there's always a higher bar for Black, Indigenous, and people of color to be able to come into these industries. And it is no, surprise that at a media outlet like this one, you would actually see that kind of situation. But that's where I first learned.